Hello, good people. This is Avril Hatala, and today's inward portrait is all about Sandra Bullock. Sandra Annette Bullock was born on July the 26th, 1964, in Arlington, Virginia. Her mom, Helga, was a very beautiful German opera singer. Her father, John Bullock, was an Army veteran in charge of the postal unit from Alabama that was stationed in Germany. Growing up, Sandra's mom had no sense of humor and would only laugh when someone hurt themselves. That's how Sandra learned physical comedy. She was always falling down. Sandra was a tomboy. She was athletic and wanted to hang out with boys. She practiced piano, ballet, and she accompanied her mother to opera shows. Sandra grew up in Germany from the ages of 1 to 12, and she is fluent in German. In Germany, her mother took her to opera shows and got her casted in a few of these shows that she acted in. Sandra got comfortable with the stage and she loved it. When she came back to America, she was teased relentlessly for her clothes and her accent. Sandra can recall the names of each person that bullied her. Sandra was interested in boys, but only to go skateboarding. In high school, she was in the drama and theater club. Sandra graduated from East Carolina University in drama. She began taking acting classes with Sanford Meisner. She was in New York City to earn money while trying to make it as an actor. Her first film was in 1989, Bionic Showdown. She then secured the 1993 role in Demolition Man. Sandra starred in the 1994 movie Speed. She experienced sexism and mistreatment in the set of Speed, a role she was paid $500,000 for. She did the sequel, Speed 2, and was paid $11 million. Sandra is famous for her noteworthy role as Miss Congeniality in 2000 and 2001, which she starred in alongside Regina King. By the way, if you haven't already watched the inward portrait on Regina King, you should do so after this. It's really good. Sandra briefly dated Matthew McConaughey, and she also dated Ryan Gosling when she was 37 and he was 21. In 2005, Sandra married Jesse James, owner of the West Coast Choppers, founder and a host on the TV show Monster Garage. Jesse was a bad boy with 2 divorces under his belt. He was rough and down to earth, which Sandra loved. Jesse was having an affair with 4 different women throughout their marriage. He made a public apology and denied that he was having affairs. Nonetheless, Sandra filed for divorce on June 28, 2010, citing personality differences. Sandra always wanted a child, but her career was first priority. She filed documents to be an adoptive mother years before she got married to Jesse. In 2010, Sandra got her adoptive child Louis and Layla a few years later. Sandra kids love to ski and skateboard. They are now 12 and 10 years old. Also, in 2010, Sandra won an Oscar for Best Actress for the role she played in the movie Blind Side. Thomas James Welding stalked Sandra in 2002. So in 2003, she filed a restraining order from Thomas, who checked himself into a mental ward. In 2006, he came back to stalk her once the restraining order had expired. So Sandra had to petition the court to keep him away from her for good. After 7 years in mental care, he was still obsessed with Sandra. He was diagnosed as schizophrenic. Joshua would contact her agent, her manager, send faxes to her agent, call nonstop. He actually thought he was charming. Also in 2006, Marcia Dana Valentine feigned death outside of Sandra's house. When Jesse came home, he started taking pictures of her car, her tags, and her laying out like a cuckoo bird. Suddenly, she popped up off the ground and jumped into her car and proceeded to run Jesse over. She was sentenced to 3 years probation. In 2014, Joshua James Colbert pleaded not guilty to stalking Sandra after breaking into her home while she was at home. Sandra heard a noise and went and she saw a man rummaging around. She ran into her bedroom and locked the door. She then got into her closet and called 911. James, who was riddled with mental health issues, yelled out to Sandra, "I'm sorry." As police were handcuffing him, he begged Sandra not to press charges. He had many gun charges on his record and had explosives and was capable of violence.
911 emergency.
Right, someone has broken into my house. I'm hiding in the closet.
They're in the house now?
Yes, they are. I just saw them walk into the attic. I have
Is it a man or a woman?
I think it was a man.
What's your name, ma'am?
Sandra Bullock.
Sandra was lucky to have survived him. He would write her Stan letters. He also went on to say that her adopted son Louis was his biological child. He would write about how much he wanted to sleep with her. Joshua actually believed he was Sandra's husband. After 2.5 years in prison, he got out under medication and supervision. But in 2018, on the day of this court, he flipped out and locked himself in his mother's guest house. He was found dead with self-inflicted wounds. Sandra escaped death many times. December the 20th, 2000, she survived a private jet crash. And then there was the car accident when Sandra and Jesse were in a head-on collision with a drunk driver. Brian Randall, a photographer and a model, has been Sandra's boyfriend and her children's stepbrother since 2015. Sandra hired Brian to be a photographer for Louis' birthday party. He was a drug addict, and so was his baby mama. Brian got into rehab and got sober. Afterwards, he stopped communicating with the baby mama and his daughter. He was a deadbeat dad up until the time the baby mama died from a heroin overdose. His daughter Skylar was his responsibility. Today, Sandra and Brian live together with Louis and Lila in New Orleans and Texas. Sandra has made many money moves in Hollywood. She owns the production company Fortis Films. She was the executive producer for George Lopez show, which was syndicated, earning her $10 million. The movie Gravity earned her $70 million because she negotiated her percentage instead of a hard $1 million number. She said that she would do the film Gravity, which Angelina Jolie turned down, for a guaranteed $20 million, plus 15% of the gross revenue the film earned, including merchandise. Her last film was The Lost City 3 years ago. In 2010 and in 2014, Forbes listed Sandra as the highest paid actress that year. The actress starred in the popular movie Bird Box that spawned millions of memes and the Bird Box Challenge by wearing blindfolds. Even after retiring in 2019, Sandra is still the highest paid actress in the world. Her films are mainly romantic comedies where she became America's sweetheart. Sandra loves and knows herself. Because of her past with being stalked, she has trust issues, and the nature of the business she works in forces her to live a private life outside of social media. Sandra's net worth is $250 million. She owns an eatery in Austin, Texas called Walton's Fancy and Staple. Her sister Gigi designed a few of the pastries. Sandra is an amazing actress, and she deserves happiness. Hello good people, this is Avril Hatala, and I want to remind you that some things being shared in this video is under the Fair Use Copyright Act of 1976. The comments and opinion in this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only.